this week's program. We're going to be looking at the harness racing industry this week, and also we'll be looking at what's been happening as far as Lincoln University's trying to keep our borders very, very safe. And don't forget, if you want to double check on anything that's on the program, you can go to our website, which is the www.ontheland.co.nz. But in just a moment, we're talking horticulture. Jim, the weather, it's a case of not quite sure what's going to happen next because nothing is happening.
Well, no, around the country today they're getting a lot of rain, which is really good. We seem to be missing out on the east coast, especially from the greater part of Canterbury and parts of Marlborough. But saying it is dry, and I'm sure Tony will talk a little bit more about that as he did last week. It is critical in some areas, but as I've said before, in horticulture, we're not so bad as we do have the ability to irrigate most of our crops. And so we can actually, in a year of dry, we can actually control the water, therefore get a better production out of it. And that has been, it has transpired.
Seems to be a sort of a fairly late winter.
Hadn't started at all, Rob. We had that whiff of snow came through about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Thought, well, this is going to be good. We're going straight from a sort of a short autumn into an early winter. We need it. Chilling is quite critical to horticultural crops, especially all the soft fruits, raspberries, all the cane fruits, and all the vines, and of course those beautiful apricots and peaches and what have you down in central Otago. And at the moment, we really have not had any cool temperatures at all. Years ago, about 20, 30 years ago, we used to look for 2,000 what we call chill hours in it through a winter, which means that the temperatures would be below 7 degrees, and sometimes the actual air temperature could be even lower than that. So we're not anywhere near that. We're still in the teens, very much in the teens. In fact, in the early 20s or around the 19s during the day, and sort of 7 to 9 at the evening. Far too warm. So everything's starting to think it's springtime. I was having a look at some buds on some fruit the other day, raspberries and some black currants, and they're thinking it's September. I hope they stop thinking that, but the only way they will stop thinking that, and that is we need some cold frost, probably 2 or 3 in a row, and that will put them to bed, but it won't certainly be a sufficient cold temperatures to what we call take them into true dormancy.
That's a bit scary, because if they do end up coming into flower, oof, that's all that energy being used.
Well, not only that, that flower becomes sterile. It doesn't produce. So you lose that little bit of production. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if we aren't into probably losing 5 to 7% of potential production because of that this particular season. Seen it before a number of years ago. What I was saying was we used to look for 2,000 hours. We now really look hard for 11 to 1,500 hours. It's still sufficient, but it's only just sufficient. And normally by now, in fact, I can almost go on a rule of thumb, 9th of April usually is our first serious frost. Now, around the 9th of April, we did have that southerly come through, and I thought, oh, this is good.
This is normal.
Yep.
Yep.
The leaves are going to start really coming off. They were senescing, but they were hanging on like anything. They're still hanging on, although the winds, some of the northwest winds that we've been having throughout the east side of the island have taken some of those leaves off. Talking to some of the very good apricot and cherry growers in central Otago, what we call the outside scale or shell of the bud is starting to move a little bit early. Normally that's another month's time, once again, because it hasn't had a frost. So let's hope we have some hard, cold frosts. And I know that the general public won't think that's a very good idea, but
we normally get nice days afterwards, Jim.
Oh, absolutely, we do. Yeah.
Winter sprays?
Yeah, so having had those nice frosts and the leaves are off and the buds are all in bed, we need to make sure we've got good formulations of copper and maybe a clean-up insecticide on the blocks, whether they be apple trees or fruit trees or cane fruit. And that needs to go on pretty much starting any time now, even with the leaves still on there and the frost may not have actually come. We need to start to look at our copper programs. And what that does, it removes bacteria, cleans up any trash that's on the trees from a disease factor, and it generally just looks after the buds and the leaf tissue that's going to come through later on in springtime. We need about 3 applications of that through the winter. Now in the old days, and still some of the older growers will still use Bordeaux and lime, which is an old way of putting on copper. It looks nice and blue, and it looks like the job's been done well. But actually, it's quite a big particle, and it doesn't really impregnate into the cracks and crevices that we really want it to. So I'd highly recommend that growers, and 90% of the growers now are using the cupric hydroxide type coppers, which are fine, do leave a blue mark behind, but that vanishes reasonably quickly, and that's what the old growers don't like about it. But actually it's doing a much better job, more efficient and more cost effective, more effective in terms of disease control and bacteria control, and you use less metal, so there's less copper going out there, way less than we used to use before, and we're well under the world standard, so that's very good for New Zealand.
And I guess herbicides comes into the conversation about now.
It does. Right now, once again, I always say it's better to start your herbicide program when the frosts start to come, and that helps to, because the weeds are trying to stay alive, and the frosts start to beat them to death, they take in the herbicide better, thinking it's going to help them, but it actually doesn't. It does quite the reverse. So it's time to have a look at what the weed spectrums are out there, and the blocks, apples and under grapevines, and that look a bit hairy at this time of the year, but that's fine. We can clean that up. But I would suggest, because of the warm conditions we're having, I wouldn't go near those vines and canes until probably towards the end of this month, May, or maybe into the early part of June, when I'm sure there'll be some frost. And then get into those weeds. Be specific.
So we're delaying herbicides a bit now.
Yes, well, I would delay them for at least 3 weeks, but I'd certainly prepare. It's a good time to go out and check your weed spectrum. If you've got, for instance, wireweed, you need to have a oxyfluorophane on it, which was one that really knocks out that weed and doesn't damage the cane fruit or the apples or anything like that. And if you just want a longer term weed control of, say, easier to kill stuff like clover and what have you directly under the trees, you'd look at a metsulfuron, or no, sorry, not a metsulfuron, a terbuthalazine type material. And if you've got harder to kill weeds such as the good old Californian thistle, which there's plenty of them out there, and mallows, you look at harder to kill herbicides that take those down too. And the oxyfluorophane is one that takes mallow down very well in horticultural crops.
Jim, what are the markets doing?
Well, in Europe we've got major problems. The onion growers and the potato growers that have been sending their produce over to those traditional markets and also into Japan, the market's extremely weak. The onion growers, they're almost putting a check in the bag as they send them off. It's not good, and unbelievably, our growing season for onions specifically and potatoes have been extremely good. The onions have got 3 or 4 good brown skins on them, so they hold very well, they'll last very well. The consumers will be very pleased and they're going to buy them at half the price. It's even going to be greater. Why is this happening? Why is it happening that apples are depressed in price over there? Why is it happening that soft fruits, raspberries, strawberries, black currants and the like, pears and what have you, are weak? It's because Mr. Putin continues to annoy the eastern side of Europe. And there's a lot of embargoes going on there, so the fruit's staying still in Eastern Europe and parts of Western Europe, but it's not going to Russia where it normally takes the top off the crop, as it were. And hundreds of thousands of tonnes of different produce and fruit and vegetables go to Russia each year, and that isn't happening this year. So it's staying in Europe, so it's depressing and making the markets very soft.
So briefly, where the hell are they getting theirs from?
Well, they have got some, obviously, facilities to grow products like that there, and the policy seems to be that if it has to be, the people will starve. And I mean, it's quite serious. And it's not a short-term fix either. There's no short-term fix to this. This could go on for quite a considerable amount of time. And I do hope that Merkel and those people that are working hard, and maybe David Cameron's back in there now, that they can really start to talk sense and have the Russian situation, embargo especially on food and produce, lifted sooner than later.
Ooh, very sobering thoughts, Jim. Thank you very much. In just a moment, though, we'll be talking about the harness industry with Bob McArdle. How's the industry looking?
I believe the industry is looking in great shape, actually. Over the last few years, through the economy in New Zealand or globally, we've gone down like falling off a mountain, really. We had 3,500 mares bred 4 years ago, then 31, 28, and this year we're down to 2,600 mares, which I believe everything's bottomed out. The industry has got the benefit of the global situation improving, and last year I think it was up 750,000 on the spend the previous year. This year there was $2 million more spent on the yearling sales spend. So it was up to $11 million in total. So that, to me, is very exciting.
So Bob, you've gone from huge numbers down to very, very few, and you're excited.
Well, it gets to a supply and demand situation, doesn't it? And when we started Neverly Stud out with Wayne Francis in 1973, there were 9,500 mares bred in this country, and I guess we've gone through a few economical crises in that period of time, and it's got down now to where the questionable mares that have been in the country have been disposed of. When you hit the bottom, there's only one way you can go. You can't go further down. So I think we've got to the point where we're going to bounce back up, and the $2.75 million increase in spend at the yearling sales certainly gives breeders an encouragement. And I think globally, within New Zealand, we've been dependent throughout the industry for years, history, of money coming through from gambling to provide the prize money for people. What Addington and Alexandra Park in Auckland are doing currently is getting into a more commercial side of things. There's a lot of commercial buildings in the back straight at Addington that's still owned largely by Addington. When the mortgages are paid off, which shouldn't take too much longer, that will produce tremendous income, which will provide prize money to keep the industry going. The same in Auckland. You've got the old grandstand and other facilities that they had up there that's sort of redundant. You're not getting the 10, 15, 20,000 people going at the races all the time, so they can do other things with it. Well, they're building apartments and shops that some will be sold and others will be rented out. With the two enterprises, you're going to get $5 to $20 million in years to come to go into prize money. Well, that's very exciting because it'll up the money that people can race for, and the more you race for, the more you get excited and the more you want to do it, because it's a very exciting business.
Are the hobbyists being overshadowed now by the professionals?
That sort of happens, I guess, in most business, but it certainly happened in this one, where people in days gone by had an old mare that was handed down from their grandfather and they kept on breeding it, and a lot of those mares haven't kept up genetically. The stallions, the access to the best in the world is now available, and a lot of in Invercargill and down south, a lot of those people are still there. They're racing for fun, but the people in the bigger cities where the majority of the ownership is now, it's so expensive, so they can't afford to keep second-rate stock in hand, so they're disposing of it. And even the hobbyists down south, no one likes to run last, whether it's a football game, a golf game, or tennis, or certainly racing, because it can get expensive. They're going to the sales now and buying a better quality mare, and I guess that's part to do with the numbers going down so much, because people realise they can't compete, so they're looking to upgrade. And that's good for breeders, because they'll be selling the better bred stock, and they're making money, and the people that are buying them will be able to compete, so they'll stay in the business longer.
So big emphasis on the dam, not just the stallion?
Oh, it's both. I've seen a lot of very good mares damaged through going to a cheap stallion. It is both. There's a lot of people say that the mare provides most, and others will say the stallion's everything, but you do have to have a very good maternal family. But today we're blessed with having access to the best stallions in the world, so our genetic base is as good as you get. You don't have to send a mare to New York to breed it anymore. New York comes to Christchurch.
Are we really international as far as the industry is concerned?
Oh yes, we're breeding stock today. Like there was a mare recently went 147, Adore Me. That's as fast as they go anywhere in America. Like that's probably only a tick of a second off the fastest mare in history. So yeah, because of the upgrade of the genetics and the stallions that we've got access to, our mare base is improving. Yeah, we're right up there now.
Tell me, how do syndicates fit into all the new industry?
They keep it going. Syndicates, because again, as I said, the costs are just so great today. There's nothing cheap in this industry. There are people that still support their own horses and can afford the luxury of doing so, but the majority of people that are in the industry are part of a syndicate, and that's fantastic, because the more people that come in, have the fun, the more people go out and talk their best friend into coming into it, and that syndication is the one thing that'll build the industry back up to where it was.
And there's nothing greater than being in the winner's circle.
No, the thrill of a winner's circle. I've been in the industry most of my life. I've made my living, I'm 73, but I've made my living since I was 20 out of this industry. Some few years ago I was in Melbourne at Moonee Valley and won the Victorian Derby. I came down from upstairs to get in the winner's circle. There were so many people around at the time, I jumped the fence to get out to get my trophy. No, there's no industry like this that'll give you the buzz, particularly as you get a little bit older.
And I can assure you that the crop of foals that Bob's got for this year are looking very, very good. We'll be back with more on The Land straight after the break.
Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure, manufactured from healthy deep sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active amino acid biostimulant, the way the world is growing. Working with nature, good for the plant, good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
I think it's all working well, Jack.
My thoughts exactly.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
This is exactly what you need.
I think that'll do the trick.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
It's all looking good. Did you bring the sauce? I can't think of everything.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
For real ideas and real solutions, just think water.
I've been reporting on farming matters on the radio and newspapers and on television for 40 or so years, but communication, like farming, has moved on. So we've come up with On the Land, online and through YouTube on any screen, anytime and anywhere. Just push play and see and hear what's happening today in our rural community. You'll learn and be informed about the latest and best information farming matters. On the Land, bringing farming information into the 21st century. So join us on our website, ontheland.co.nz.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world.
Tony, a couple of days of nor'west winds with a bit of rain. Don't tell me people are thinking irrigation again.
Oh yes, we had a staff meeting in Hanmer last week, and of course we had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday were pretty nice nor'west days, sort of early 20s. One afternoon, I think it was Wednesday afternoon, there was nor'west rain that made it as far as certainly as far as Hanmer and probably down as far as about Mouse Point, Culverton, somewhere around about there. Anyway, we had a little bet when we left Hanmer that 3 days of nor'west, things would have dried out immensely, and that we would see some irrigators going. And me being the cynic in here and my staff saying, no, nobody will be irrigating. Well, we got just past Mouse Point coming home, and lo and behold, out on the left-hand side, there's 3 centre pivots going. So
you won the bet?
I won the bet, yeah. So I nothing serious, just some coffees. But
only coffees, not
coffees.
Chardonnay?
Not even a nipple, you know. So I'm thinking, wow, that's terrible.
You're going to have to change your rules on that one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but I was...
No, but seriously,
I was staggered. I was staggered. I mean, it's not that the YR has been on serious restrictions this year. They have been irrigating. They were irrigating during April, and to see them irrigating the first week of May was astounding, and they were the only ones that we did see, however, although there were a couple of going in the distance. And I didn't go down that far to take any photographs, but I have the photographic evidence that these people were irrigating, and it was really surprising to see that.
There's somebody in the Emery Basin that's actually very embarrassed right now.
Yeah, they will be shortly when the article gets written. You know, there's an article due for one of the rags soon, and it gave me a headline straight away, Rob.
Good idea. Speaking of headlines, big changes for the can, which will become the template for the rest of the country, no doubt.
Yep, I think they'll probably become the template. Variation 1 of the proposed land and water plan was notified on Saturday, last Saturday, the 9th, I think that was. So that means that the only appeals that can be made to Variation 1 now are on points of law. So this is High Court stuff now, so there are only legal issues now that you know, that you are unjustly served, or, you know, you didn't see all the information, or whatever it happens to be. So there's a template there now for particularly, there's rules and policies about all sorts of activities, not just those that affect agriculture, but probably of concern for irrigated agriculture is that it's going to seriously restrict the development of irrigation in Canterbury from this point forward.
So what is it that's changed?
It's primarily around the nutrient leaching. So if you are currently a dryland farmer and you have and you wish to convert to irrigation, to overcome the additional leaching of particularly nitrates from your system, by irrigating, it's going to be very hard to get those people under the threshold to allow them to go ahead without having to spend an awful amount of money going through probably consent hearings and maybe even as far as environment courts, simply because of the nutrient losses. Because there's no question, as soon as you do irrigate, you will increase the drainage through your profile, and therefore you'll increase the increased nutrient losses from your property. So it's going to be very, very difficult for somebody, unless they are part of an irrigation scheme, like Huranui, for example, the scheme in Huranui, or someone like Central Plains, for example, Central Plains Water, that has a global consent with a nutrient allocation that has yet to be divvied up. Actually, how that's going to be divvied up is still to be determined. So unless you're part of one of those schemes and that you get a nutrient allowance as part of your irrigation development, the Joe Bloggs, the Rob Cope Williams, who might want to irrigate his dryland 15 hectares to intensify your grazing of cattle or whatever you want to do, it's going to be extremely difficult to get you over the hump to be able to develop irrigation.
So what if the Rob Cope Williams has already got a property and he buys a neighbour?
If you've already got a property and you irrigate and you want to spread that irrigation water on the next door property as well, that might be possible, but it will require some overseer modelling to show what the before and after effects are and what the net effect is. And if your net effect increases and it goes beyond the threshold, then, for example, in the Selwyn-Te Waihora zone, between the Waimaki area and the Selwyn rivers, Rakaia rivers, if you exceed 15 kilograms of N per hectare loss, then that's a non-complying activity, or a prohibited activity, I think, from memory. So that's something that you can't do. So you wouldn't be able to develop that area as an irrigated chunk next door because you would exceed the nutrient losses on that property.
Tony, what about the people that have spent a couple of $100,000 on consultancies already and they haven't got a consent yet?
Yeah, that's of concern to me, because there are a number of, not just our company, but other companies who have got clients in the process, and they will now be considered under the new plan. So they may have begun the process a year to 15 months ago, and the cynic in me says that there has been a delay in getting, for example, a commissioner appointed to hear a application, and the cynic in me says that this has been delayed so that this will then be heard under the new rules, and those processes are going to be almost impossible to get through under the new rules. So a whole swag of money has already been spent, and the internal process at Environment Canterbury has delayed that process, and those people will be left high and dry. So I know of a number of people that are going to be seriously grumpy applicants to develop.
So what's the industry as a whole feeling about this whole thing?
Yeah, when I've talked to other consultants that are doing similar work to what we're doing, looking at the resource consenting process, we are of the same opinion that if you are not going to irrigate within the bounds of one of the schemes, and you are going to be a private developer, it's going to be
the hole in the ground people.
Hole in the ground people. I mean, even if you, for example, put a hole in the ground and you purchase a consent, the rules state now that you have to forgive 50% of that, so you only get 50% of the consent, the annual volume to use on your property. The rest of it goes back into the environment, so to speak. So even if you do that, converting from dryland to irrigated to get you over the nutrient leaching hump is going to be virtually impossible.
Interesting times.
Very interesting times ahead. Quite scary times ahead, I believe.
Well, in just a moment, we're going to be talking about biosecurity with the Lincoln University. First question really is, what does your department do?
Well, we're not actually a department. We're a Centre for Research Excellence, the Bioprotection Research Centre, and we're concerned with biosecurity and the bioprotection of New Zealand's plants. So we look at things like invertebrate pests, weeds and diseases of plants, whether it's indigenous or whether it's the productive sector.
But you're quietly smiling because you've just landed some funding.
We've just been refunded for the next 5 years, which of course is huge for us. It's relatively difficult for groups that look at fundamental research to get funding outside government grants. We can always get some co-funding from industry, but to keep ourselves going, to be able to do the sort of fundamental work we do for the capability development, or the PhDs we train, the next generation of researchers, we really need that government funding.
So what sort of research is coming out of here?
We work a lot on sustainable systems for pest disease and weed management. And so that's like biological control options. It's like being able to predict what the next pest will be that gets to New Zealand, the next weed will be, understanding how organisms become invasive, understanding why biological control works sometimes and doesn't work others, and how we can actually come up with the step change that will make all that work better in the future. Not just incremental change, but actually whole new systems.
It must be interesting trying to work out what's going to hit next.
It is, and it's an inexact science, generally because we can't predict exactly what will hitch a ride here. We can predict that when something gets here, whether it will become a pest or not. And so we generally get surprised by the actual species that turned up, not surprised by its success. And I think that's one of the learnings over the last 10 years, is that we can go beyond, say, climate matching, and it's much more complicated than that. There's a whole topologies involved. There's what's already here that might attack a new invader. So not everything that arrives here is successful, but a couple that are successful can cause us huge, huge losses.
Well, if you look at gorse, which has obviously been around a long time, I mean, that grows better here than anywhere else in the world.
That's right, and we have examples of that. The wasps, the German wasp and the common wasp, probably more successful here than they are anywhere else. And this is a pattern that you see when an organism arrives in an environment that doesn't have its natural controls. And we have a relatively simple ecosystem in New Zealand. We don't have a lot of layers of parasites and predators that will automatically attack a new invader. And so we get big outbreaks. We're also dependent on relatively few plant species to make our money. There's very, very few grasses, a few crops, monocultures, very susceptible to new invaders.
You've got nothing to do with airport security, but you're more of the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff?
Yeah, we do work that does inform airport security, especially some of the pathway analysis and predicting, but we work very closely with several other organisations. There's a program called the Better Border Biosecurity that we're a partner of, that is exactly that. It's looking at border biosecurity and how to make it better. Our research is one step back along that fundamental axis, away from the very applied, and we're looking for what are the technologies that you could use to make that better that we haven't even tried yet.
How do you start working out what you're going to be doing, because you don't know where to start?
You need people who are experienced enough to actually have an understanding of the area of what's been done before, because you don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Well, either really.
But agile enough in their mind that they can bring technology from outside. It's also, and this is the real benefit of having a Centre for Research Excellence, we have over 11 institutes in New Zealand contributing scientists to our efforts. We have 5 partner organisations that make up our core. These people all get together and feed off each other and come up with the new ideas. If you're working away in a lab just by yourself, you're very unlikely to come up with a whole new breakthrough. It's the other people you talk to and their ideas from a slightly different field that you need to incorporate. And that's our strength. And the fact that a lot of our work is based around PhDs and postdocs, those young people who are not yet cynical about what's possible. And they drive a lot of the innovation. And so it's that mix. You need those very experienced people to put some reality around and to guide the research. You need young, agile minds.
Have you got any contact with people outside New Zealand?
Very much. We have to be internationally focused, because although what we do has to be done in New Zealand because our ecosystems are unique, we have to be informed by what's the best science going around the world. And we're very strongly linked overseas, both through our attendance to other research institutes. A lot of people come and visit us as well, because New Zealand is very strong in biosecurity research, bioprotection research. A lot of countries are not as focused on that anymore and are finding that they don't have the trained people that they would have had 20 years ago. It's not a sexy science.
So a student who wants to work overseas, this is obviously a very important place to come.
Very much, yes. And we are training more New Zealanders. It's still, the ratio is very much at the postgrad level to international students coming here. We also are very careful to track where our graduates go, because that makes a difference. And somewhere around 66%, I think, when we ran the figures of students we train stay in New Zealand, working in industry, working in government, working in research. And that's about the right figure for us. We need some going back overseas to get more experience, and they often come back, but we need to be retaining these people we're training.
Travis, how safe are our shores?
We do an incredibly good job for a very difficult situation. I've been in other countries. I was in Florida, and Florida is a perfect example of what New Zealand doesn't want to be. Over 50 new invaders every year. They can only deal with 2 or 3, and so an awful lot is just let go, and it will cause problems, and minor industries suffer from it. We don't want to be in that situation. We're still good enough at it that our security breaches are big news. We don't want to be in a situation where our security breaches are yet one more. And I think we're getting better all the time. And we work very closely with the ministry as well. And I think overall we do a good job.
So it's really nice to know that there's a lot of young people who want to look after our shores. After the break, we're going to be talking with MPI.
Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure, manufactured from healthy deep sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active amino acid biostimulant, the way the world is growing. Working with nature, good for the plant, good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
I think it's all working well, Jack.
My thoughts exactly.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
This is exactly what you need.
I think that'll do the trick.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
It's all looking good. Did you bring the sauce? I can't think of everything.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
For real ideas and real solutions, just think water.
I've been reporting on farming matters on the radio and newspapers and on television for 40 or so years, but communication, like farming, has moved on. So we've come up with On the Land, online and through YouTube on any screen, anytime and anywhere. Just push play and see and hear what's happening today in our rural community. You'll learn and be informed about the latest and best information farming matters. On the Land, bringing farming information into the 21st century. So join us on our website, ontheland.co.nz.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world.
Gary, I guess it's the time of year when people are looking seriously at drying off, and with good reason this year.
Yes, that's right, Rob. The main thing is this year, with having been a dry summer, there's obviously concern at this time of the year around farmers concentrating on body condition of the cows, making sure they're in good order going into the winter. Also, we the things that we'd like to see at the moment is, I know there's a temptation with a low payout to keep milking the cows through as long as possible, but I think farmers have to weigh that up with with looking forward, planning forward, and looking at the body condition of the cows and making sure that they're in good order moving into the calving season.
Because they should be what sort of score this time of year?
We'd probably be expecting a range between 4.5 and 5.5 on the body condition score at this time of the year. We're looking, obviously we're looking at good healthy cows, not too skinny. They need to be in a position that they're going to winter well, and so that when they go into calving, obviously there's going to be less complications in terms of metabolism issues with the cows also.
Because you really don't want them to start having calcium problems at the other end
that's
and going down.
Yeah, that's the downside. So as I say, the temptation's there with a low payout that the farmers will be tempted to milk through. But what we're saying is, look, you really have to weigh that up. You probably be better off to dry off just a couple of weeks early to maintain the condition of the cows moving into winter.
And bear in mind that you're going to get it at the other end if the cows are in better order anyway.
That's the spin-off, yeah, that's exactly right. Just look a little bit further ahead, and moving forward into the springtime next year, you obviously want the cows to come into the shed and be full of milk.
I guess in a funny sort of a way that the Indian summer we've been having throughout New Zealand has helped, because we've still got grass growth.
Yeah, that's right. At this time of the year, that's the bonus. With having a dry summer, of course, there's still good grass growth now, particularly in mid-Canterbury, and South Canterbury is also coming away. So in terms of the dry summer that we've had, those areas are responding well. There's still a concern in the North Canterbury area that things are pretty dry there, and as you're well aware, they've missed out on a lot of the rain that we're starting to get at the moment.
And the North Island's not looking too bad either, by all accounts.
Yeah, that's right. The North Island's in pretty good shape at the moment as well. So, we would expect the grass to sort of keep growing through the May period and into the middle of June, and then obviously as the winter kicks in and the weather cools down, that's going to slow the grass rate down as well.
It's interesting that this week I was out and about and they were making hay, or putting it into haylage. So, that's an extra bonus, because the supplementaries will be getting a bit low. I
think that's a concern as well, and I think a lot of farmers have compensated from that by winter grazing on their own properties rather than grazing off onto grazing blocks this year. So that's certainly a trend that we're starting to see, that in previous years obviously farmers have grazed their dairy cattle away from the farm, and this year there's been a tendency to graze on farm. So that could lead also to, if we have a miserable wet winter, cold winter, that could also lead into problems in terms of grass that's ahead of the cows in the springtime.
Yeah, because basically that's a decision being made because of economics, not because of anything else.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The drought still, it's not going to be very nice for us going into next year, because they're predicting much of the same.
Well, the flow-on effects that we're seeing at the moment is the winter crop yields are only half of what we would expect from previous years. So that's a wee bit of a concern in terms of what the cows are going to eat through the winter time. But yeah, it's hard to predict what's going to happen in the future, but all I can say is, look, we can only deal with what we've got on our plate at the moment. That's correct. Yeah.
If you were good at predicting, you'd be in the horse racing industry, wouldn't you?
That's right. Yeah.
Tell me about the pig industry, because you guys go right across the board.
Yes, that's correct. We're starting to work proactively with the pork industry and the pork boards and things like that, in terms of getting a rapport going with them, so we can better understand their industry and they can better understand what the Ministry of Primary Industries is trying to achieve in terms of quality products from that industry.
Because with all due respect, they've had a pretty tough deal from the media, and I don't expect you to comment on that. But,
no,
you know, they certainly have.
Yeah, they certainly have, but they're a resilient bunch of people, the guys in the pig industry, and the good thing about them is they're passionate and they're looking to move forward. So there's changes coming up with them in terms of sow crates, stalls, and things like that. You know, those have been phased out. So that's a big change for that industry, and it's going to obviously cost individual farmers a bit of money in the short term. But as I say, most of the guys in the pork industry, you know, in terms of animal welfare, they're all pro animal welfare, and they're all running, you know, good operations, and they're in a positive frame of mind moving forward. So it's it's good for us to keep liaising with those guys. You know,
they've come to you basically and saying, we want to work with you.
That's correct, and it's just to get a better understanding, because I think a lot of what happens in that pork industry that's out in the public eye is in a negative manner, and so I think that working a bit with us, working closer with the pig industry, can only lead to positive outcomes.
Because I think a lot of people probably look at you as a police force, but in fact you're a very much support.
Yeah, that's one of our primary factors, is that we are there to promote New Zealand export products, and obviously pork falls into that bracket, you know, and also they've had a difficult time with the pork, because a lot of the pork that we get in New Zealand is actually imported. Over 50% is now imported into New Zealand, so of course that reflects on them as well. So.
Yeah, and of course everybody wants to make a living. Interesting, the trend for cut and carry and dairy covered yards and things nowadays. Yeah,
yes, we're still doing a bit of, it's a bit of early days, if you like. You know, we don't really know whether that's going to be helpful or not. But I guess one of the main factors that everyone's thinking about at the moment is there's a concern with the nitrate leaching and things like that. So people are looking at introducing alternatives that will keep the nitrate leaching levels down. And obviously of that, you know, you've got things like cow housing and things like that have been introduced into farming now, which is obviously, you know, it may take off or it may not, but it's too early to tell at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think it's too far away. I mean, if you look at Pannett's Road, and I've been in there, and the cows are all very quiet and lying down and look very contented and taking turns underneath the scrubbers as a tickle up. And
yeah, that's right. I think that if you talk to guys that have done it, they'll be pro the idea. But as I say, from our perspective, it's probably early days, and it's too early for us to sort of make a judgment or to say whether it's a good idea or not. So good luck to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, you know, cut and carry is going to be definitely the way, even if it's just a feed pad without a roof on it.
Yeah, and that's been going on for some time now as well, with dairy farmers putting animals onto feed pads in times of wet periods and things like that. So I guess it's just extending that out to the next level, if you like. So yeah, no, good luck to them, I think.
Absolutely, I'm sure. Please keep in touch, because we like to know what's going on out there, and well done, because you're looking after us and everything is going according to plan for you guys.
Yeah, thanks very much for your time.
Yeah. We'll be back with more on the Land straight after the break.
Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure, manufactured from healthy deep sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active amino acid biostimulant, the way the world is growing. Working with nature, good for the plant, good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
I think it's all working well, Jack.
My thoughts exactly.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
This is exactly what you need.
I think that'll do the trick.
We'll get you thinking.
It's all looking good. Did you bring the sauce? I can't think of everything.
For real ideas and real solutions, just think water.
I've been reporting on farming matters on the radio and newspapers and on television for 40 or so years, but communication, like farming, has moved on. So we've come up with On the Land, online and through YouTube on any screen, anytime and anywhere. Just push play and see and hear what's happening today in our rural community. You'll learn and be informed about the latest and best information farming matters. On the Land, bringing farming information into the 21st century. So join us on our website, ontheland.co.nz.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world.
Dear, exciting times for the young farmers with their regional final, not the regional final, it's the national final.
Yeah, grand final in Taupo, not too far away, the 2nd to the 4th of July, it's all action now.
So you've got your 7 finalists, and we've interviewed them. We'll be trickle feeding them over the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Pretty high standard.
Yeah, pretty delighted with the overall standard. We've got 3 out of the 7 have returned from previous years competing. You're only allowed 2 goes at grand final. Of course, if you win it on your first attempt, that's it for you. But we've got a real good combination of experienced and first timers.
So you can stand for the regionals as often as you want.
Yep, that's
but
right.
to get into the grand final, two chances.
2 chances. Yep. Yep, just to ensure that everyone gets a go.
Young farmer stops at the age 30. That's pretty young.
Actually 31, and that's ridiculously young in my opinion. But yep, it's we want to make sure that we continue with that vibrancy and energy that youth provides.
And the other neat thing that I noticed talking to your 7 finalists was their wide range of knowledge, and if you're a dairy farmer you still know about everything else.
Yeah, have to, and that's the great thing about this competition, is that you've got to be an all-rounder. You've got to be an all-rounder in terms of strength, knowledge, ability, skills, and yes, if you're a dairy farmer you've got to know how to shear a sheep or any other kind of discipline that might come up in the final.
Because the other interesting thing was the number of these guys who said, I've got some very good friends that I spend a lot of time with and I'm interviewing them the whole time.
Yeah.
So, and I guess the internet helps.
Yeah, it sure does. And the whole mode of how we operate as an organisation's changed over the years too. You know, nothing's quite as insular as it used to be.
Majority of them said that they got into young farmers for the social side. They wanted to have a few beers and have a chat. That's very important as far as you're getting people to come in and join.
It's often the trigger. And people actually, you know, when you're 17, 18, 19, you're in your first job or you're in training, you actually don't realise the value of A, networking, B, leadership development opportunities and what that might do for your career. So you join because you actually want to hang out with people that think like you, that act like you, and you can have a great time.
Because you get pretty isolated if you're sitting on a farm and if you're from overseas, for example, you know those people you work with, but that's it.
Yeah, that's right, and that's why we've got clubs the length and breadth of the country. We've got 80 clubs approximately at the moment. We've still got gaps. We're pretty weak, for example, on the east coast of the North Island. But that's, you know, all those things are taking time to sort of fill out. We probably think to get good coverage across the country, probably need about 120, 130 clubs.
And what's involved with somebody who says, okay, there's no club in my area, what do I do to get one started?
Oh, that's quite simple. You can just go onto our website, which is www.youngfarmers.co.nz, and make contact with us. We've got field offices scattered around the country, so no one's too far away from actually setting up a meeting.
And what's it cost to join? Because that's another deterrent in some people when they're earning not much.
No, that's right. Our full membership is $70 a year, so it's pretty harmless. And what that gets you is a whole lot of range of benefits, tangible benefits as a member, discounts here and there and some value, but also just that opportunity to A, compete in the contest, get some leadership experience and some governance experience and a whole lot of things to help you on your career.
JCs, I was a member of the JCs when that was fashionable, and it was a long time ago, I might add, but that was basically there to teach us to communicate and to get us involved with community, and Young Farmers is very much the same.
Yeah, it is.
It's a staircase.
And it's the same sort of values that are in place. You know, we value things like being able to debate, being able to hold a conversation, hold your own across industry. You know, there's loads of meetings that go on around the country for the industry, whether it's Federated Farmers, whether it's Fonterra, whoever it might be. If you've got an opinion, it's a valid one, you need to be able to speak it.
You're up against shyness, because shyness amongst the rural community is very prevalent.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And that's why that our club environment needs to be really welcoming, and that fun element to actually start to draw you in. You're right, as a young fella or girl, getting in there and contributing right from the start is pretty daunting. So it takes a bit of time to break those barriers down.
Yeah, once again, you get one of these top guys who will say, I can put up a fence in my sleep, but to do it in front of a whole lot of other people and a judge.
Yeah. That's right, and like one of the challenges in the grand final is you've got to give a speech, and it's a 2-minute speech on a subject that's just given to you, not too much before the evening, and you've got to deliver that to 400 guests, which will include cabinet ministers and MPs, etc. So it's a pretty high-powered room. Yeah, you've got to be able to perform.
But that's, and I want to stress, that's at the very top. The
Sure.
people who are coming in at the bottom don't have to worry about that. They can just
absolutely.
They can have a few drinks and
Absolutely, and you can ease yourself in. You get out of it what you put in. So if you're just happy just to meet people and have it as a social network, great. Young Farmers is definitely for you. It's all those other things, if you want them, that become valuable.
So let's go for the. I want to keep coming on back to this, to the little person who's probably from overseas, got a language barrier to a degree, probably doesn't have much in the way of transport. How do they sort of fit in? Yeah,
so our clubs are always trying to get new members, and if it means actually going, picking them up, bringing them to the meeting that particular night, they do that. We've got club chairs now who are first generation New Zealanders, let us say.
Yep. No, that's, thank you, because that's exactly what I'm driving at.
Yeah, and yes, they speak with an accent, and it can be a little bit slow, but we're very inclusive and trying to get more people to actually understand that to embed themselves in society is going to help them in terms of their career. Whether they're here for a season or they're here for the long haul, there's some real value. Terry,
do you find that the employers are helping your cause by saying, listen, you've been sitting in your accommodation 7 nights a week, let's get you into Young Farmers?
Yes, in fact we're about to initiate a project with Dairy NZ and Federated Farmers around this whole well-being of farm employees, and part of that is to support them into a network like New Zealand Young Farmers.
And of course you've got contact with everybody, because you're going to be telling everybody about On the Land and the fact we've interviewed the top 7 finalists.
Absolutely.
Because how competitive is it as far as individuals, but also as far as the regions? I mean, they're representing the Tasman region, for example.
That's right.
Yay!
Yeah. So, and that rural and regional passion definitely comes through, and they bring their supporters with them. So at grand final it gets very loud, particularly on the practical day where you're actually cheering these guys on to try and do their best, and they're carrying their region on their back. There's no doubt about that.
That adds a lot of pressure to them.
Yeah, it does.
You know, I mean, it's sort of like playing for the Crusaders.
Yeah. Yep. As it should.
As it should. Got websites, you've got a lot of support systems, you if you can be as shy as you want to, but you'll be able to one-on-one and get involved.
Yeah, and the really cool thing is now we're getting our sort of high school club age group transferring as they get a bit older into Young Farmers. They're actually getting that sociability, being able to talk a lot earlier, so they're actually not starting from fresh from 18 or 19, which is really refreshing to see in the club situation. But yeah, it's a dynamic place to be.
And bottom line is that's our next generation of politicians, of Federated Farmers leaders.
Absolutely.
Rural women, New Zealand.
Yep, most definitely.
Brilliant, Terry. Thank you very much, and good luck for the final. It sounds as though it's going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
Good. I'm Rob Cope-Williams. You've either been watching, or you've just missed On the Land, but I will be back at the same time next week. Until then, bye now.